This is Dan Morrison
and Sam Bushman
for Candid Gaming's review of Planet Minigolf for the PlayStation Network.
Zen Studios' latest offering to the PlayStation Network, Planet Minigolf attempts to bring a physics-driven multiplayer minigolf experience that showcases a variety of power-ups and locations to keep players' interest.
So, without further delay, let's go to the first hole.
The first thing that really stood out to me in Planet Minigolf is how they managed to separate both the visuals and the gameplay elements of each individual game world. In the pirate world, for instance, you had a very rickety but traditional playfield. In the ice world, things were very low friction, very slippery. In the Aztec environment, there was a lot of booby traps and drop panels. And in the Soho environment, there are skate ramps that made it really interesting to bank balls off the wall.
Yeah, I have to agree. Not only is the gameplay unique, but the visuals also are unique to each one of these worlds, and it really sets them apart from each other.
That being said, though, there are some issues with a handful of the holes in Planet Minigolf. Some of these holes require a specific sequence of item captures or a specific path to take in order to get your ball to the hole under par. And this was very frustrating for me, considering how, when playing minigolf in real life, I value the ability to make up what I want to do on the fly.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's one of the more frustrating things about this game. You'd be going, you get 2 or 3 holes, and you're all happy. Then you have this one hole, you have to go ahead and get that one power-up to go ahead and jump it up into this bucket to get into the hole-in-one. If you miss the power-up or somehow messed up on using the power-up, you'd screw up your shot and you'd get 10 over par easily. And it totally ruins the game for you. And that goes into the swinging mechanics in this game. There are 3 different ways to swing the ball, but none of them really work very well. The first input method is the direct method. You use the analog stick to pull back and push forward to go ahead and roll your ball. However, it just doesn't feel right. You pull back for the power, you push forward kind of for the accuracy, but sometimes to get that really good power band, it just wasn't working. And it's really frustrating trying to get that good accuracy and power, and with the direct, I never felt like I had either of them because it was always erratic.
Yeah, I really felt like there was a lack of finesse when trying to use that mechanic, so I ended up switching to first the 3-click and then the easy. With the 3-click, you essentially hit the button once and the meter goes up until it hits a certain point in the power. Then you hit the button a second time to indicate that power. And then the meter goes back down into this little gauge that indicates your accuracy. You click a third time and it indicates the accuracy for your shot. This I found personally was the easiest, although I've heard a funny story from you, Dan, where overscanning your television actually obscured the accuracy portion of this meter, and that's something I think should have been tested. And as for the easy, it's a simple one-click solution where you click and hold and then you release when you want to, and the meter will slowly go up, and wherever you release, that's the power you hit. The downside to these two, however, is your ability to time your shot to avoid obstacles. That was lost, and I felt like there should have been a balance between them.
Yeah, and the other thing about these options in the game is that you cannot change your swinging technique in the middle of your game. You'd have to quit out to the main menu to switch your options, which means you'd have to lose and forfeit the course. The other thing that bothered me about this game was the single player. In the single player, there is no real opponents that you're playing against. You're really just playing against a score chart that has 5 other players on it that randomly accumulate scores. So as long as you kind of get around par, I guess you're okay, but it kind of feels like you're playing by yourself. And it's just kind of an underwhelming experience. The other thing is that you really can't practice a single hole in this game. You have to play through courses. So if you wanted to go ahead and practice hole 8 on the extreme course, you'd have to go through all 7 courses to get up to hole 8 and then practice that hole. And it kind of makes it hard to practice when you have to go through so many holes to get there.
Yeah, and that also is really frustrating. Considering some of the flaws that a handful of these holes had, having to play through holes over and over again really got repetitive, especially when you wanted to unlock new holes in this game. The way that the single player works in this game, you have to win a series of cups, and with each cup win, you unlock a new handful of holes you can play, both single player and multiplayer, and this became problematic when new players want to come over and play multiplayer with their friends and try out a fresh hole. It made for a very frustrating and painful experience. But for all the issues I had with the single player, I really enjoyed the online multiplayer of this game. The one mechanic that got added with the multiplayer edition is the ability to hit the other player's ball when you're both simultaneously competing to go to the hole. This added another level of competition that I had not seen in a minigolf game previously. You could be devilishly fiendish to a fellow player and knock him completely off the course, or send him into a spiral of traps that take him at least 3 strokes to get out of.
Yeah, it's one of the more fun mechanics of that this game adds to the multiplayer. But the thing I didn't like about the multiplayer was that you couldn't play with 3 or 5 of your friends. If you wanted to play with 3, you'd have to play with 4 people, have one person play the 4th player, or if you want to play with 5 people, you'd have to play in teams of 3, which is not how I wanted to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, personally, whenever I have friends come over, everyone's looking to compete with each other. I have never in real life played minigolf on teams, and to have a game dictate that that's the only way you can play multiplayer with more than 2 people is just a really odd design decision.
The other thing is that you couldn't change your stroke technique between players, so if one person wanted to use the easy mode of strokes and the other guy wanted to use the direct mode, they couldn't choose it. Whoever hosted really chose how it was, and everyone locally had to use the same stroke technique.
Yeah, especially considering how this was not a limitation that existed on the netcode version of the game. It really seemed like an odd design choice to put that in only the local multiplayer. I suspect it might be lazy programming that caused this.
Overall, I found this to be a very flawed game. There are many core mechanics that were broken and weren't completely finished, and it just kind of felt like a half-polished game, and even though it's a $10 game, it doesn't feel that it was really worth it, regardless of how much content it is. You can't play through it all.
Yeah, I agree with you in a lot of ways, Dan. There's some really strange design decisions made. Obviously, not all these holes have been quality assured to ensure that they're going to be fun for all players. But that being said, I still think that the online multiplayer gives it a little bit of merit. I certainly wouldn't pay full price for this game, but I think a $5 mark, or if you find it on sale in a package deal, it'd be well worth the purchase. I'd just say don't bother waiting in line for this game.
Alright, I think that's all we have to say today. Leave comments at the bottom page, and we'll see you later.
And he comes up short in today's tournament.